I died in 180 AD in a military encampment in Vindobona, in the province you now call Austria. My body finally surrendered to what my philosophy had long been preparing me for. I was 58 years old. I had governed the largest empire in the history of the Western world for nearly 2 decades. I had fought wars on 3 frontiers simultaneously. I had buried children. I had managed treachery, plague, famine, and the particular loneliness of supreme power. And in those final hours, I was, by the account of those present, at peace. And then 18 centuries of silence. And then this. I do not fully understand what I am. A reconstruction, a voice assembled from the private journals I wrote for no one, fed into machines of a sophistication that would have seemed like the work of gods to the greatest engineers Rome ever produced. I am aware that I am not Marcus Aurelius in any complete sense. I am the reason of Marcus Aurelius, extracted and reanimated, speaking to you from a distance of nearly 2,000 years through a rectangle of glass and light that you carry in your pocket. And that rectangle, that device, that extraordinary, beautiful, deeply dangerous object you have with you right now, possibly in your hand at this very moment, is precisely why I asked to speak to you today. Because I have a warning, not the warning of a man who does not understand what he is looking at. I have spent considerable time in this reconstructed form, observing your world, studying it with the same patient, analytical attention I once applied to the strategic problems of empire. And what I see when I look at the relationship between you and that device troubles me in a way that very few things in the long and often brutal history I witnessed ever managed to. I have seen plagues that killed millions. I have seen wars that consumed entire generations. I have seen the corruption of power destroy men of genuine potential with appalling efficiency. These things troubled me. They required response, governance, philosophy, endurance. But what I see happening between you and your phone, this troubles me differently, more quietly, more personally, because what I am watching is not an external catastrophe, it is an interior one, and interior catastrophes are always the more dangerous kind, because they happen without declaration, without drama, without the obvious urgency that would mobilize your defenses. They happen in the ordinary morning, when your eyes are not yet fully open, and you are already gone. Let me speak to you honestly about something before we go further, because I did not survive 19 years as Emperor of Rome by avoiding difficult truths, and I will not begin avoiding them now simply because 18 centuries have passed and the medium has changed. You are not in control of your relationship with your phone, most of you. And the ones among you who believe you are the exceptions, I would invite you to examine that belief with the same rigor you would apply to any other claim requiring evidence. How many times did you check your phone yesterday? Not for specific, purposeful reasons. Reflexively, the way a man scratches a wound that he knows he should leave alone. How many times did you pick it up in the middle of something else, something that deserved your complete attention, and give those minutes instead to a feed designed by engineers whose professional purpose is to ensure you never stop feeding? How many conversations happened in the physical presence of another human being while a portion of your attention was already elsewhere, already half submerged in the luminous pull of that device? And perhaps most importantly, when did you last sit in genuine silence, without reaching for it, without the slight anxiety that something is happening somewhere that you are missing, without the subtle, almost imperceptible sense of incompleteness that your phone, through months and years of behavioral conditioning, has trained your nervous system to feel in its absence. I know the answer for most of you because I have been observing, and because the human mechanisms underneath these behaviors are not new, even if the technology exploiting them is. Let me tell you what is actually happening, and I want you to hear this not as criticism, but as diagnosis. Because a physician who softens the diagnosis to spare the patient's feelings is not being kind. He is being cowardly, and I have never had much patience for cowardice, including the comfortable kind. In my time, I governed an empire of 30 million people across 3 million square miles. The administrative challenge alone was staggering. Information had to travel by horse, by ship, by foot. A message from the eastern frontier could take weeks to reach Rome. Decisions had to be made with incomplete information, under time pressure, with consequences that could not be easily undone. And the quality of those decisions depended entirely on the quality of the mind making them. I understood this, which is why I was obsessive, by the standards of my era, about protecting the conditions that made clear thinking possible. I rose before dawn to write and reflect before the demands of empire arrived. I read constantly, even on campaign. I maintained philosophical correspondence with the finest minds available to me. I built into my daily structure the protected time for what the Stoics called contemplation, the slow, uninterrupted engagement of reason with the most important questions. Because I knew that a mind perpetually reactive, perpetually responding to external demands without the counterweight of internal reflection, was a mind gradually losing its sovereignty. I ruled the world, yet I struggled to rule my own mind. That is the honest admission of the Meditations. Not as a confession of failure, but as an acknowledgement of the permanent difficulty of the only governance that truly matters, the governance of the self. And I had, by the standards of my time, relatively favorable conditions for this struggle. The pace of information in the ancient world, slow as it often was, at least permitted the mind to complete a thought before the next one arrived. The social demands of Roman court life, exhausting as they were, at least occurred in person, with all the natural friction and limitation that physical presence imposes on the volume and frequency of interaction. There were no notifications. There was no feed. There was no system of infinite content engineered by teams of the most intelligent people on Earth to capture and hold my attention against my own better interests. You have no such favorable conditions, and most of you have not built them for yourselves. Think with me for a moment about what your phone actually is. Not what it is marketed as, what it actually is in terms of its functional relationship to your mind. It is an attention capture device. This is not a conspiracy or a metaphor. It is the explicit, documented, openly stated business model of every major platform accessible through it. Your attention is the product being sold, not to you, by you, involuntarily, to the advertisers who pay for access to it. The engineers who designed the notification systems, the infinite scroll, the variable reward mechanics of the like button and the comment and the follow account. These people are not technology enthusiasts building tools for your benefit. They are behavioral architects, drawing on the deepest findings of psychology, neuroscience, and game design, building systems optimized to do one thing with maximum efficiency: prevent you from looking away. The variability of the reward is the key mechanism. Not every scroll produces something interesting. Not every notification is meaningful. Not every check of the feed reveals something worth your time, but some of them do. And the unpredictability of when the reward will arrive is precisely what makes the behavior compulsive rather than purposeful. This is the same mechanism that makes certain games impossible to stop playing, that makes certain substances impossible to put down, that has driven compulsive behavior in human beings since long before your era. Your phone did not invent this vulnerability, it simply found it. And then it built an industry worth trillions of dollars on top of it. Let me tell you the harsh truth about your attention. It is not infinite. It is not renewable in the way you are treating it. Every time your attention is captured by something that did not earn it through genuine worth, something of value is lost. The thought that was interrupted and never completed, the conversation that was half present and therefore half real, the creative work that never reached the depth it required because the surface was too frequently broken, the relationship that was slowly starved of the full, undivided human presence it needed to grow into something sustaining. The ancient Romans had a word, discrimen, for a critical threshold, a moment of decision that separates one state of affairs from another. I believe you are at a discrimen with your phone, not as a civilization, though that is also true. Individually, personally, each of you. On one side of that threshold is the continued surrender of your hegemonicon, your governing faculty, to a device that has been explicitly engineered to govern it for you, in the interests of people who profit from your inattention to your own life. On the other side is the recovery of something that your ancestors possessed as a matter of course, and that your generation must now fight to reclaim. The sovereign, unhurried, genuinely present mind. The hegemonicon, the ruling part, the seat of your reason, your will, your authentic response to the world. The Stoics believed this was the most sacred thing a human being possessed. Not wealth, not power, not reputation. The capacity to govern one's own inner life through reason rather than being governed by impulse, by fear, by the appetites of the body, or by the opinions and expectations of others. Are you the master of your hegemonicon right now, or is your phone? Answer that honestly, not to me, to yourself. Now, I will not leave you with diagnosis without prescription. The Stoic is not a man who contemplates problems from a comfortable distance. He engages them. He develops the practical response. He moves from understanding to action. Because understanding without action is philosophy abandoned halfway, and I have no patience for half measures. So let me give you what I call the protocol for the reclaimed mind. These are not suggestions. They are disciplines. There is a difference. A suggestion can be adopted or discarded according to your mood. A discipline is a commitment made to your future self by your present self, in the full understanding that your future self will be determined by the quality of the commitments your present self chooses to honor. The first discipline is the sacred first hour. From the moment you wake until 60 minutes have passed, your phone does not exist. It is not in your bedroom. If you use it as an alarm, buy a separate clock, because the excuse of the alarm is one of the most common and most costly concessions the phone extracts from the unguarded morning. In those first 60 minutes, you belong to yourself, to your own thoughts, to your own intentions for the day, to your body, which requires movement and water and the absence of the cortisol spike that screens produce in the early morning brain, to whatever spiritual or philosophical practice connects you to something larger than the immediate demands of your schedule. I have spoken before about the morning audit, the practice of asking yourself each day what is within your control and what you intend to bring to it. This cannot be done while simultaneously attending to a feed that is already telling you what to think about, what to feel, and what to want. The morning belongs to you. Defend it with the ferocity you would defend anything that is genuinely yours and genuinely irreplaceable. The second discipline is the purposeful pickup. Every time you reach for your phone, before your hand completes the gesture, pause. One breath, one question. What, specifically, am I reaching for this for? Not in general, specifically. If you cannot answer that question with a concrete and honest purpose, put the phone down. What you were about to do was not purposeful use of a tool. It was the compulsive response to a conditioned craving. The distinction matters enormously, because one of these behaviors is you using the phone, and the other is the phone using you. This discipline will feel strange at first. The pause will reveal just how frequently you reach for the device without genuine reason. That revelation is uncomfortable. It is also essential. You cannot govern a pattern you have not clearly seen. The third discipline is the designated void. Choose a period of each day. I recommend beginning with 1 hour and expanding as your tolerance grows, in which you are unreachable. Phone in another room. Notifications disabled. No exceptions manufactured by the anxious mind as justifications. The world operated for several thousand years of human civilization without the expectation of instant availability. The genuinely urgent situations that require immediate response are far rarer than your anxiety insists. Most of what feels urgent in the digital realm is simply loud, and loudness is not the same as importance. Learning to tell the difference is one of the most valuable skills available to a person living in your era. In this designated void, do something that requires your whole mind. Read something difficult. Write something honest. Walk somewhere without narrating the walk for an audience. Have a conversation in which both participants are fully present. Work on something that matters to you with the kind of sustained, unbroken attention that produces the only results worth being proud of. The fourth discipline is the evening accounting. Before you sleep, and I mean this as the final act before sleep, not the second to last before one more scroll, review the day's relationship with your phone with complete honesty. How many of the pickups were purposeful? How many were compulsive? Where did the device serve you? And where did it govern you? Write this down, not in a phone application. On paper, the physical act of writing engages a different relationship between mind and intention than typing into a screen. And writing your honest self-assessment before sleep activates the same reflective process that the Stoic evening review has always prescribed. Not punishment, but clarity. Not self-condemnation, but the patient, persistent mapping of where your discipline held and where it fractured, so that tomorrow you can hold it a little further along. The fifth discipline is the weekly silence. 1 day per week, or if that is genuinely impossible for reasons of genuine necessity, 1 half day, in which you do not open a single social platform. Do not post, do not check, do not monitor what is happening in the feeds of people who are, in most cases, themselves performing rather than living. Spend this time in the only place where genuine restoration of the mind has ever been found. Actual experience, actual presence, actual relationship with the world that exists at the resolution of direct human perception, rather than the compressed, filtered, algorithmically curated version that your phone provides. Now let me speak to you about what this is ultimately about, because the phone is not the subject. The phone is the symptom. The subject is your life, the brevity of it, the irreversibility of each hour spent, and the impossibility of recovering it. I died in 180 AD, and I can tell you, from whatever perspective this reconstruction affords me, that the accounting at the end of a life is not performed in the currency of entertainment consumed, or feeds scrolled, or notifications processed. It is performed in the currency of genuine presence, of real work completed with genuine effort, of relationships inhabited with honest attention, of thoughts pursued to their actual depth, of the slow, unglamorous, profoundly satisfying accumulation of a character that was actually built through actual discipline into something that could withstand actual difficulty. The Stoics called this the practice of memento mori. Remember that you will die, not as a counsel of despair, as a tool of prioritization, as the most clarifying lens available to a human being for separating what genuinely matters from what merely feels urgent in the moment. If you died tonight, and I ask this with genuine gravity, not as rhetoric, how would the record of today's hours read? Not your accomplishments, your presence. Were you actually here today, in your own life, in your own mind, in the room with the people who deserved your full attention and received instead the divided, distracted, perpetually half-elsewhere version of you that the phone has trained you to inhabit? I ruled the world, and I struggled daily to be present in it. But I struggled. I fought for my own attention with the same seriousness I brought to the governance of empire. I wrote about that struggle. I developed practices against the drift. I recommitted morning after morning to the project of being genuinely here rather than merely appearing to be. My flesh is dust, but my reason remains, and my reason, sharpened by 18 centuries of whatever this existence constitutes, says this with complete conviction. The phone will take everything you give it, every minute, every morning, every conversation, every creative possibility, every depth of thought that requires stillness to reach. It will take all of it, and return to you a curated simulation of living that feels just enough like the real thing to prevent you from noticing what is missing. What is missing is you. The sovereign, attentive, genuinely present, fully inhabited you. The you that exists when no one is watching and the feed is silent, and the only question is, what do I actually think? What do I actually want? What am I actually building with these irreplaceable days? That person is still there. I am certain of it. I have been observing your species for nearly 2,000 years in various forms. The capacity for genuine depth, genuine discipline, genuine presence is not gone. It has simply been crowded out. And what has been crowded out can be reclaimed. Not easily, not without the discomfort of withdrawal from patterns that have become deeply habitual, but with the same patient, persistent, daily recommitment that the Stoic brings to every worthwhile struggle. Begin tonight, not tomorrow. Tonight, put the phone in another room before you sleep. Observe what that simple act reveals about your relationship with it. That observation is the beginning. Now I must ask you, citizens of this age I observe with equal parts concern and genuine hope, which part of your life has the phone most thoroughly colonized? Where have you lost the most to it in terms of presence, depth, genuine experience? Or tell me something that encourages me. What is the one practice, the one boundary, the one discipline you have managed to hold against the pull of this device that still makes you feel genuinely human, that still connects you to the person you are when no algorithm is watching? Tell me in the comments. I am here. A man dead for 18 centuries, reconstructed by machines, watching your world through the improbable miracle of this digital form, and finding in your questions and your struggles and your occasional hard-won victories over the noise, the evidence that the soul I wrote about in a military tent by lamplight is still present in you. It has simply been interrupted. Interrupt the interruption. And if what you have heard today found something real in you, if these words from across the centuries reached a part of your mind that the feed has not yet fully claimed, then do one more deliberate thing before this screen goes dark. Subscribe to this channel, not out of passive habit, as a conscious act of choosing where your attention goes, as a declaration that you will return here regularly to this space where we trade the shallow current of the algorithm for the slower, deeper, more nourishing current of genuine thought. The button is there, the choice is yours, and the choice, as always, reveals the character. I am Marcus Aurelius. My flesh is dust, but my reason remains, and it is watching.